Good morning, everyone. It's Brian over at Cross Country Mortgage. Hope you're having a great start to your week. Hey, we get a lot of questions about appraisals. Do I need to get an appraisal? What the heck is the appraisal for? How does it work? Who orders it? How much does it cost? All that. So I wanted to give you some information about appraisals. A couple things that I want to talk about as well is um, how long an appraisal will actually run with the property. Like some loan types require the appraisal to stick with the property and others don't. So let's talk about this. So the most common question that we get is, hey, if my house was already appraised, can we use that appraisal? Generally speaking, the majority of the time, the answer is going to be a no. The reason why is lenders like ourselves, we have to order the appraisal through our appraisal management company. And let's say you're doing a conventional mortgage, and let's say you talk to another lender and they ordered an appraisal for your purchase, and then for whatever reason, let's say they might have denied your loan, or maybe you didn't like what was happening there, you weren't getting good service, and you decided to leave. Well, that appraisal for a conventional mortgage, it doesn't leave that lender. It's very, very, very rare that we would transfer and take an appraisal from another lender on a conventional mortgage and port that over to us as the lender. Most of the time, what is required is you're required to get a new appraisal. So on a conventional mortgage, appraisals don't transfer from one property or from one lender to another, and they also don't stick to the property. What I mean by that is, let's say that you're buying a home and you're doing a conventional loan, and then you're denied at that lender after you've done the appraisal, and then you come to lender number two, and let's say we're doing the mortgage, we would have to order another appraisal because they're not portable between one lender. The appraisal is not portable between the first lender and the second lender. So now, the second most frequent question that we get is related to an FHA mortgage. So there's a lot of lenders that have underwriting overlays in the process of approving your mortgage, meaning they make it more difficult than what Ginnie Mae would require you to be approved for, or how you're approved, I should say. So they might have that lender you're working with might have a higher minimum credit score requirement, as an example, or maybe your debt to income ratio is higher than they initially thought after they got into the underwriting of your mortgage, and they deny your file after the appraisal is done. What happens with FHA is the appraisal runs with the property. That means that once the appraisal is completed for an FHA mortgage, there's what was called an FHA case number that's attached to that appraisal and to the property. So if your loan is denied, or maybe you guys cancel that deal on that property, that appraisal for FHA will stick with the property for 120 calendar days from the date the appraisal was completed. So let's say you're denied and you move on from that property, and the seller has another buyer come in and they want to buy the home with an FHA appraisal or FHA loan. Well, the appraisal that was originally done has to be used in that circumstance. You can't order another appraisal, you can't get a higher value, you can't change anything with that appraisal after it's originally done with FHA for 120 days. Now, if you decide to cancel that deal and then move on to buy another home, you would have to pay for another appraisal on the second home. And again, if you're doing FHA, that new appraisal will stick with that property for 120 days. That's important to understand as a buyer, and as a seller as well, because if the property appraises low, then that value that's low will stick with that property for 120 days unless the next buyer finances the property with either a conventional mortgage or a VA mortgage or a USDA mortgage. So basically FHA, the appraisal runs with the property for 120 days. Now, VA appraisals are totally different. In the conventional and FHA mortgage world, we as a lender have to order the appraisal through our appraisal management company. So there's a little bit of flexibility there, and we can speed things up, and we can ask our appraisal management company to reprioritize our file over another one if we have a short closing date. There's a lot of flexibility if we're doing a conventional or FHA mortgage. However, with a VA mortgage, when we order the appraisal, we have to order it through the VA. The VA has a panel of VA approved appraisers, and the VA controls how that order is distributed to those appraisers, and we are at the mercy of that appraiser to complete the process. Right now, the market is, very high demand, very low inventory, super competitive. And if we're doing a VA loan, we need to have probably 1.5 to 3 weeks to get the appraisal back, where in a normal market, it might take a week and a half. So with VA, what's interesting is kind of like FHA is if you, let's say you cancel the purchase of your home and you're using a VA mortgage and we've got the appraisal done, that VA appraisal literally runs with the property and it runs with the borrower. So let's say that you go, you cancel this deal and you go buy a new home. Well, the new home, you'd have to pay for a new appraisal, another VA appraisal, and then the original home that you had under contract, that VA appraisal would stick with the property and with the borrower. So meaning if you went back to go buy that home and maybe you put a deal back together, you canceled it because you didn't like what was happening, the seller was being, maybe non-negotiable or just kind of unrealistic, and then you leave, and then you come back a month or 2 months later, when you go and come back, that value and that appraisal is sticking to that property and to you. If another buyer comes in that's going to be a VA borrower, they wouldn't have to order a new appraisal. They have to use the VA appraisal that's already been completed on that property. So VA is totally different. Basically, what ends up happening is, let's say that you cancel that contract with the VA home loan, you leave. We've already had the appraisal done, and then another buyer comes in and decides that they want to buy the home with a VA mortgage. Well, then that appraisal that you paid for is literally going to be transported to the new lender. We have to transfer that appraisal over to the new lender for the new buyer, and that new buyer will use that appraisal for their purchase. That's how VA works. So, it's basically each property or each loan type is different. Conventional appraisals, don't stick to the property or the borrower. FHA, the appraisal stays with the property for 4 months, 120 days, and VA stays with the property and the borrower permanently. So, if you've got questions about any of this stuff, don't hesitate to reach out. There's lots and lots of questions that we get about appraisals. But I want you to understand kind of how those work and what that looks like. If you need anything or know of anybody that has questions, please give us a shout. Our office number is 847-603-4778.